Swallow it, trash. The words didn't echo, they detonated. Cold water arced through the air in a perfect, merciless curve, catching the light like a glass blade before smashing against her face. It hit her eyes. Her lips slid down the crisp white of her blouse, soaking the fabric until it clung like accusation. Behind the blonde woman holding the bottle, two uniformed security officers stood with their arms crossed, like silent jurors who had already decided the verdict. No one moved, no one intervened. The black woman didn't scream, didn't flinch. She closed her eyes for a beat long enough for the sting to fade and the weight of the moment to land. The lobby around them was pristine, marble floors polished to a mirror, glass walls framing a skyline worth millions, the air thick with perfume that couldn't mask the smell of contempt. Gasps rippled from the bystanders. A young woman near the elevator clutched her phone tighter, camera already rolling. Somewhere in the corner, a junior employee half rose from her desk, then froze under the manager's glare. "Did you hear me?" the manager pressed, tilting the bottle again, a bead of water trembling at its lip. "You don't belong here." Her voice sliced the space in measured, deliberate cruelty, every syllable crafted to stick. The black woman's hand rose slowly, wiping water from her mouth. Her eyes opened not wide in shock, but narrow, steady, studying. She could have answered, could have shouted, but her silence said something heavier. "I've seen this before." Because she had. Years ago, in a hotel lobby on the other side of the country, dressed in her Sunday best, told to leave because this area is for guests only. Back then, she'd walked out. Not today. Around her, the tension thickened. The phone in her purse buzzed once. She didn't check it. The younger security officer shifted his weight like he wanted to say something, but the older one's folded arms pinned the moment in place. A man in a tailored suit passed behind her, slowing just enough to smirk. "Policy's policy," he murmured, as if that justified humiliation in front of strangers. Still, she didn't speak. Not yet. The marble beneath her feet felt cold, grounding. The eyes on her judging, recording, waiting only anchored her deeper. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. The manager leaned closer, voice dropping low enough for only the nearest bystanders to hear. "Walk out, or I'll have them drag you out." Her chin twitched toward the officers. The black woman finally turned her head slow, deliberate meeting the gaze of each man in uniform. "Then you'd better be ready for what comes after," she said softly. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. She didn't move when the water reached her collar. She simply straightened her spine, letting the droplets trace slow, humiliating paths down to the marble at her feet. Her name was Naomi Carter, 34. Calm eyes, minimal makeup, hair in a sleek low ponytail that didn't beg for attention. She wore an ivory blouse, tailored navy slacks, and carried a black leather bag, polished, understated, expensive only to the trained eye. Nothing in her appearance screamed wealth or status. That was intentional. Naomi had booked the executive suite 3 weeks earlier. No assistant made the call. No VIP email flagged the system. She wanted to see the property the way any guest would unannounced, unprotected by title. This wasn't just a hotel. It was one of dozens under the flagship of Carter Holdings, the hospitality group her husband built from a single boutique property in Atlanta. And though his name sat on every legal document, Naomi had been there for every late-night budget meeting, every risky acquisition, every decision that turned debt into dominance. But to the woman now gripping a half-empty water bottle, Naomi was just another problem to solve, or better, to discard. "Is this a joke?" The manager's voice rose, drawing more eyes from the sleek check-in counters and lounge chairs. "You think you can stroll in here, dripping wet, claiming an executive suite? You think we won't verify?" Naomi set her bag gently on the counter. "The reservation is under Carter. Naomi Carter." The manager laughed, sharp and hollow. "That's cute. Carter's a big name here, but you're not on any list I've seen." From behind the desk, a younger clerk hesitated. He'd seen that name in the system this morning, tagged VIP with a notation he didn't recognize. But one glance from his boss froze him in place. Naomi didn't argue. She didn't plead. Her gaze swept the lobby, the brushed brass accents, the framed art along the walls, the scent of fresh orchids drifting from the concierge desk. Every inch was familiar. Every inch was hers. A couple near the elevator whispered. The woman's phone angled just enough to capture the scene. The man shook his head, murmuring, "She's not even raising her voice." Naomi adjusted her sleeve, still damp. She could feel eyes on her, cataloging every choice she'd made. No designer labels, no entourage, no announcement. Just a woman, alone, in a space that wasn't expecting her to belong. The manager leaned forward, elbows on the counter. "Listen carefully. If you leave now, we'll forget this little stunt. If not, I'll have them escort you out. And believe me," she glanced at the security officers, "they're not gentle." Naomi met her stare, unblinking. "Do what you think you need to do." Her phone vibrated again. This time, she reached for it. A single message from her husband lit the screen. "I'm here. Don't move." The manager's lips curled into something between a smirk and a sneer. "Security," she called over her shoulder. "Escort this woman outside. She's wasting everyone's time." The younger guard shifted uneasily. The older one didn't blink. He stepped forward with the slow certainty of someone who believed the uniform gave him ownership of the room. Naomi stayed still. "You haven't even checked the system." "We don't need to," the manager cut in, pulling a laminated form from under the counter. "We've had people try this before. Fake bookings, fake cards. You're not the first, and you won't be the last." She slid the form onto the counter, but her eyes stayed locked on Naomi's, like this was less about policy and more about performance. The water stain on the marble between them reflected the overhead lights, an accidental spotlight on humiliation. At the far end of the desk, the junior clerk, the same one who'd hesitated earlier, looked from Naomi to the monitor in front of him. He could see it. Naomi Carter, Executive Suite, Owner, Level Access. But the manager's glare pinned him to silence. A guest in a navy suit stopped near the concierge desk, clearly interested. "What's going on here?" he asked the younger guard. The guard's eyes flicked to the manager before answering, "Just removing a trespasser." The word trespasser rippled through the lobby. Phones tilted higher. Murmurs grew sharper. Naomi adjusted the strap of her bag, her movements slow, deliberate, as if each one were a choice she owned completely. "If you're going to escalate," she said, "you should be sure you're right." The manager ignored her and tapped a button on the desk phone. "Code 6, she told whoever answered. "Fraud alert at the front desk." From behind, a tall man in a charcoal blazer, another guest spoke up. "She gave you her name. Why don't you just look it up?" The manager turned, flashing a brittle smile. "Sir, we have procedures. This isn't about her name. It's about her behavior." Behavior. Naomi let the word settle. It was the same word a desk clerk in Charlotte had used when she was 16. Waiting in a lobby in her Sunday best, told to leave because her behavior made other guests uncomfortable. Différent decade, same blade. The older guard came closer, his boots heavy on the marble. "Ma'am, we can do this the easy way or the hard way." Naomi met his gaze. "And which way protects you when you're wrong?" The younger guard's eyes darted to the junior clerk, who still hadn't moved. His fingers hovered over the keyboard like he wanted to type but couldn't. The manager snapped, "Now." The guards flanked Naomi, one on each side. The taller one reached for her arm. That was when a woman's voice cut across the lobby. "Don't touch her. I've seen her name in the system." It was the junior clerk, standing now, his voice louder than he expected. All eyes turned. The manager's jaw tightened. "Go back to your station." But it was too late. The line had been crossed. Naomi didn't step back when the guard's shadow fell over her. She didn't lift her voice or plead her case. Instead, she adjusted the cuff of her damp blouse, as if the marble lobby were her own dressing room and the confrontation was nothing but background noise. The junior clerk's words still hovered in the air, an inconvenient truth the manager tried to swat away with authority. "Ignore him," she barked at the guards. "Proceed." Naomi's eyes stayed on the clerk for a heartbeat longer, a silent acknowledgement that she'd heard him, that his choice to speak had not gone unnoticed. Then she turned back to the manager. "If you're certain," she said softly, "then act." The older guard's jaw flexed. "Ma'am, let's make this easy." Naomi tilted her head, the faintest shadow of a smile at the corner of her mouth. "Easy for whom?" The lobby's hum-shifted conversations dipped, camera lenses angled higher. People recognized a different kind of control, the kind that didn't need volume to fill a room. From a corner table, a woman whispered to her companion, "She's not even raising her voice." The man replied, "That's what's making them nervous." The manager leaned in, lowering her tone, but not her venom. I've dealt with your type before. You think being calm makes you untouchable. Naomi's gaze didn't waver. No, she said. Being right makes me untouchable. It was quiet enough for the words to land like a gavel strike. A droplet from the earlier splash of water traced its way down her sleeve and fell to the marble. She glanced at it, then back at the manager, her expression unreadable. In her mind, the memory came sharp and uninvited. 28 years old, standing in line at a luxury store in Miami, holding a bag she'd saved for months to buy. A clerk had waved her away with, "We're closing," while smiling at the white couple behind her and letting them in. That same smile was now plastered across this manager's face, polite enough to fool some, sharp enough to cut those it targeted. Naomi exhaled slowly, not to calm herself, but to pace the moment. She wanted the room to see the contrast, her stillness against their urgency, her composure against their scramble to control the narrative. The younger guard hesitated again, glancing at the junior clerk, then at the phones aimed like silent witnesses. Naomi spoke again, this time not to the manager, but to the room. If you believe in procedures, follow them. Check the reservation, confirm the facts, or don't and prove what this really is. It wasn't loud, but the words reached every corner. The line between guests and bystanders blurred. People shifted in their seats, sensing the weight of being part of something bigger than a check-in gone wrong. The manager's fingers tightened around the desk edge. Enough, she snapped. Naomi only blinked once, slowly. You first. It started with one phone. A young woman in a floral dress near the lobby's glass doors angled her camera higher, her brows drawn tight. Beside her, a man in a navy polo leaned closer to see the screen. It's recording, she whispered. Don't say anything stupid. By the concierge desk, an older couple paused mid-check-in. The husband's hand rested on the handle of their suitcase, but his gaze stayed locked on Naomi. The wife tugged his sleeve. That's not how you treat a guest, she murmured. The junior clerk, still standing, still visibly tense, shifted his eyes from Naomi to the cluster of onlookers. He could feel it building, the quiet consensus that something wasn't right here. From the far side of the lobby, a young bellhop froze mid-step, the luggage cart's wheels squeaking against the marble. He knew that name. Carter. He'd seen it flagged in gold on the internal roster. He also knew the manager's tone. He'd heard it used before, always with the same type of guest. Near the elevators, two teenagers sat cross-legged on their suitcases, whispering into a live stream. We're at the Regal Grand, one said to the camera, and this woman just got water thrown at her. The staff's calling her a trespasser. A man in a charcoal business suit, clearly a frequent traveler, stepped closer. Excuse me, he said to the manager, but I saw her hand you her name. Why not just check? The manager's smile was pure PR. Sir, we have procedures. That's what people say when they don't have answers, he replied, voice carrying just far enough for the phones to catch. Naomi remained still, hands resting lightly on her bag. She let the murmurs fill the air, let the room absorb the dissonance between her calm and their aggression. From a velvet chair in the lobby's lounge area, a woman in her late 20s, sharp bob haircut, laptop open, spoke without looking up. They did this to me last year. Different city, same script. The older guard's posture faltered for the first time. The younger one looked toward the desk, his jaw tightening as if weighing whether to speak again. Then the bellhop finally moved. Manager, he called. I saw her reservation this morning. VIP, owner level. His voice wasn't loud, but the lobby's natural hush made it carry. The manager's neck stiffened. Stay in your lane, she snapped. The bellhop's cart squeaked again as he stepped forward. This is my lane, he said quietly, when it's about how guests are treated. Phones tilted. The air shifted. What had been a one-sided confrontation was now a widening circle, the center of which Naomi still occupied, silent but unyielding. From the elevators, the floral dress woman spoke again, her voice trembling but clear. We're posting this. People need to see. The manager's gaze darted between the growing audience and Naomi's face. She was losing control of the room, and she knew it. Naomi, still unmoved, finally spoke not to the manager, not to security, but to the strangers watching. If you're going to watch, she said, then remember what you saw. The words settled like a seal on the moment, binding everyone present to it. The manager's patience snapped. Enough of this circus, she barked, her voice louder than it needed to be. Security, remove her now. The older guard stepped in first, boots heavy on marble, his hand hovering dangerously close to Naomi's arm. The younger guard followed, his eyes darting between Naomi and the phones, catching every angle. Naomi didn't move. "You're making a choice," she said quietly. The manager scoffed. "We're following protocol." A man near the concierge desk laughed under his breath. "Funny how protocol only shows up when you want someone gone." The junior clerk glanced toward the bellhop, their silent exchange loaded with something the manager couldn't see, a readiness to speak again if needed. From the lounge chairs, a woman in a red scarf raised her voice. "I saw her name in the system, too. This is harassment." The manager's glare swept the room like a searchlight. "Everyone here needs to mind their business. This is between the hotel and an unverified individual." "Unverified?" Naomi repeated, her voice still calm, almost curious. "You haven't even looked at the reservation." "That's because I don't need to," the manager fired back, stepping around the counter. "I can tell when someone doesn't belong here." The sentence landed like a match in dry grass. Murmurs flared into open whispers. A man with a rolling suitcase muttered, "Say it louder, why don't you?" The younger guard shifted his stance, visibly uncomfortable now. "Ma'am, maybe we should—" "No," the manager cut him off. "She leaves. Now." She gestured sharply, and the older guard reached forward. The moment his hand grazed Naomi's sleeve, a sharp voice cut through the lobby. "Don't lay another finger on her." It was the bellhop again, stepping out from behind his cart. His tone was different this time, not just defiance, but certainty. "She's on the owner-level list. I've seen it with my own eyes." The manager rounded on him. "You're out of line." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm not wrong." Two more guests spoke up almost at once. "Check the system," one insisted. "Prove it," the other challenged. The manager's composure cracked. "This is not a public debate," she snapped, but her voice lacked its earlier sharpness. Naomi's gaze swept the growing semicircle of strangers, some holding phones, others simply watching with folded arms. "You all have a choice too," she said. "You can pretend you didn't see this, or you can remember it when it happens again." The older guard's grip loosened. The younger one stepped back entirely. But the manager, unwilling to yield, pulled a desk phone toward her. "Calling corporate security," she announced for all to hear, as though volume could restore authority. Naomi only adjusted the strap of her bag and waited. The air in the lobby was no longer just tense, it was charged, the kind of energy that could tip either way with the next word. The phone slammed into its cradle with a hollow clack. The manager strode around the counter, closing the distance between herself and Naomi. Her heels struck the marble in a staccato rhythm, like a gavel calling order to a court she thought she controlled. Without warning, she reached for Naomi's bag. "This doesn't belong to you," she declared, yanking at the strap. The movement sent the leather bag swinging, bumping Naomi's hip. Naomi's voice was still level. "Let go." The manager didn't. Instead, she gripped tighter, pulling hard enough to drag the bag halfway off Naomi's shoulder. "You're stealing from the hotel. Security will deal with you." A chorus of gasps rose from the onlookers. The younger guard took an involuntary step forward, not to help the manager, but to stop her from going further. The older guard hesitated, his eyes flicking to the phones aimed at them. From the lounge, the woman in the red scarf stood. "That's assault," she said loudly enough for the farthest corner to hear. The manager snapped her head toward her. "Mind your business." "Ugh. This is my business when I'm standing in a lobby that allows this," the woman fired back. The bag slipped from Naomi's shoulder into the manager's hands. She held it aloft like a trophy. "Empty it. Right here. Let's see what you've stolen." Naomi didn't reach for it. "And if I don't, then we call the police," the manager spat. The junior clerk finally broke his silence again. "You can't just take someone's property, and she's—" He stopped himself, glancing at Naomi. The manager cut him off with a pointed finger. "One more word and you're done here." Phones recorded every second. The bellhop, still standing beside his cart, addressed the guards. "You know this is wrong." The younger guard's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, maybe you should put the bag down." The manager ignored him. "You don't decide protocol, I do." She set the bag on the marble counter, flipped the clasp, and began pulling items out: phone, wallet, folded papers, placing them one by one in plain view. "This is public now," she said with grim satisfaction. Naomi's eyes narrowed. "You just made it that way." A man in a gray blazer near the elevator muttered, "She's digging her own grave." The manager unfolded the last item, a slim envelope, and waved it like evidence. "What's this?" Naomi took a single step closer, her voice low, steady, and cutting through the air like a blade. "That's the line you just crossed, and you can't uncross it." Silence gripped the lobby. Even the older guard looked away. The phone stayed up, red recording lights glowing like tiny, unblinking witnesses. From somewhere near the entrance, a door hissed open. Footsteps echoed across the marble, measured, confident, drawing closer. Naomi didn't look back. She didn't need to. She knew exactly who it was. The footsteps stopped just behind her. A familiar warmth radiated over Naomi's shoulder, steady, anchoring. A deep voice cut through the charged air. "Put the bag down." Every head turned. Standing in the center of the lobby entrance was Daniel Carter, 6'2", dark tailored suit, no tie, the quiet kind of authority that didn't need to announce itself. His gaze didn't move from the manager's hands. The manager blinked, thrown for half a second before her voice found its edge again. "Sir, this is a private matter. She's my wife," Daniel finished, his tone making the words final. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The bellhop froze, eyes wide, as if a puzzle had just clicked into place. The junior clerk's lips parted, but no sound came. The manager's face hardened. "That doesn't change the fact that she's—" Daniel stepped forward, closing the gap in 3 deliberate strides. "It changes everything. Now put the bag down." Her grip faltered. She set it back on the counter, but her chin stayed high. "Sir, I don't know who you think you are." Naomi's voice cut in, calm as ever. "He's the CEO of Carter Holdings, the parent company of this hotel." The phones caught it. A visible shift rippled through the room, shoulders straightening, murmurs spiking, guests exchanging looks that said they knew this clip would live far beyond today. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Naomi? Protocol?" She met his eyes. 6. He pulled his phone from his pocket, tapped once, and brought it to his ear. "Activate 6. Lock all access for Gregory Vance's management team. Now." A beat later, a female voice, clear, professional, came through his speaker. "Confirmed. Credentials frozen. Audit initiated. All internal communications logged from the past 20 minutes. The manager's posture wavered. "You can't just—" "I can," Daniel said, "and I just did." The younger guard took a step back, his gaze fixed on the floor. The older one cleared his throat like he wanted to disappear. Daniel turned slightly, addressing the room. "If anyone here witnessed my wife being harassed, I suggest you save those videos. Corporate will be in touch." The floral dress woman near the doors called out, "Already recording." "Good," Daniel said, his eyes returning to the manager, "because I want every second documented, starting from when you poured water on her." Color drained from her face. "That's not—" "It's on camera," Naomi said simply. Daniel stepped closer, his voice lower now, meant only for her. "This is the part where you stop talking." The lobby was silent except for the faint hum of the AC. Outside, traffic noise filtered through the glass, muted but constant, a reminder that the world beyond these walls was about to know exactly what happened here. Naomi reached for her bag, reclaiming it without haste. She didn't check its contents. The act of taking it back was enough. Daniel's phone was still to his ear. "Yes, proceed to phase 2. Somewhere in the building, a faint chime sounded the digital lockout going live. The tide had shifted, and for the first time, the manager seemed to realize she was standing on the wrong side of it. Daniel ended the call and slid his phone into his jacket pocket. The move was slow, deliberate, a signal that the real conversation was about to begin. He turned to face the crowd first, not the manager. "For those of you wondering, my name is Daniel Carter. I'm the CEO of Carter Holdings. This hotel, and 43 others across the country, are ours." A murmur rolled through the lobby, the kind of collective sound that carried both disbelief and satisfaction. Daniel shifted his gaze to the junior clerk. "Son, thank you for speaking up. You've got a future here." The clerk blinked, stunned, and nodded quickly. Then Daniel faced the manager, each word clipped and crystal clear. "You've spent the last 20 minutes humiliating my wife in a lobby she owns." He let the sentence breathe before continuing. "And you did it in front of witnesses, cameras, and my security logs." The manager's mouth opened, but no sound came. Naomi stepped forward, her damp blouse catching the light. She addressed the room as much as the woman in front of her. "This isn't about a reservation. This is about the moment someone decides what you look like, tells them who you are." From the back, The floral dress woman raised her voice, and we all saw it. Daniel nodded toward her. Exactly. Which is why every single piece of footage here will be forwarded to our legal team. The older guard shifted uneasily. Sir, You followed her orders, Daniel said, his tone softening but not forgiving. I'll let corporate decide what that means for you. To the younger guard. You hesitated. That matters. Remember it next time. Phones kept filming, the red dots like unblinking witnesses. Naomi reached into her bag and pulled out the folded papers the manager had laid on the counter. She held them up. This is the signed contract giving me joint controlling interest in this property. My name is on the deed. She laid it flat on the counter for all to see. The bellhop stepped forward, eyes bright. Ma'am, She stopped him with a small smile. I know. Thank you. Daniel's voice dropped lower, aimed directly at the manager now. Effective immediately, you are relieved of your duties. You and your entire direct team are to leave the premises within the hour. The manager's face drained of color. You can't. Naomi cut her off. We can. And we just did. The line hit like a closing gavel. Someone near the elevators whispered, That's going viral. Daniel took Naomi's hand, a subtle but unmistakable gesture that this was as much personal as it was corporate. Enjoy your last walk through this lobby, he said to the manager, because after today you won't set foot in it again. Silence followed, thick, heavy, absolute. It was the kind of silence that told everyone the game had changed, and there was no going back. The manager's knees didn't buckle, but the shift in her weight betrayed her. She glanced toward the security desk as if hoping for backup, but neither guard moved. The younger one avoided her eyes completely. The older one looked past her to a fixed point on the wall, as if distance might erase complicity. The junior clerk returned to his station slowly, still wide-eyed, but now his hands were steady on the keyboard. The bellhop, meanwhile, stood taller than before, the cart at his side suddenly less a piece of hotel equipment and more a podium he'd earned. In the lounge, the woman in the red scarf crossed her arms, the faintest smirk curling her lips. I told you it was harassment, she murmured, not to anyone in particular, but loud enough for the mics on half a dozen phones to catch. Guests shifted in their seats, the air electric with the collective awareness that they had just witnessed a power structure tilt. Some whispered, some openly smiled. Others simply kept their cameras trained on the scene, knowing exactly how the internet would devour it. The floral dress woman lowered her phone just enough to speak. This is going to be everywhere by tonight. Her companion nodded, eyes locked on Naomi like she was the headline that had just written itself. The manager tried again, voice thin now. We can discuss this in my office. There is no office for you anymore, Daniel cut in, his tone final. Her mouth closed, then opened again, as if her mind were searching for a script that no longer existed. The older guard finally spoke, low and hesitant. Sir, do we need to escort her out? Daniel shook his head. She can walk herself. It was worse than an order. It was dismissal wrapped in dignity she hadn't shown to others. The manager's eyes darted to the front doors, to the path she would have to take through a gauntlet of lenses and judgment. Behind her, the junior clerk began typing quick, efficient keystrokes that were sending an all-staff alert. The bellhop pulled his phone from his pocket and quietly texted someone, his expression a mix of relief and vindication. A man in a gray blazer leaned toward his wife and whispered, I hope corporate uses this for training. Naomi adjusted the strap of her bag, now dry in the air-conditioned cool. She didn't look at the manager. She didn't need to. The shift had already happened. The rest was just gravity doing its work. The younger guard stepped aside, opening a clear path to the doors. His eyes met Naomi's briefly, a flicker of apology, unspoken but understood. For the first time since the confrontation began, the lobby felt bigger, the tension easing into something else. Inevitability. The manager took one step toward the exit. Phones followed her like searchlights. Each heel strike echoed too loudly against the marble, each second stretching longer than the last. By the time she reached the doors, the reality had settled not just for her, but for every witness. The power in this building had shifted hands in front of their eyes, and no one could pretend they hadn't seen it. The glass doors closed behind the former manager with a soft hiss, but the silence she left was anything but gentle. Every eye shifted back to Daniel, waiting for what came next. He took a measured breath, scanning the lobby, the guards, the staff, the guests who had become witnesses. This isn't finished, he said. voice steady but carrying the weight of finality. He gestured toward the older guard first. "Effective immediately, your contract is terminated. You stood by while my wife was assaulted. That's not security, that's complicity." The man's shoulders sagged. He didn't argue. He simply removed his earpiece, placed it on the counter, and walked toward the back hallway without a word. Daniel turned to the younger guard. "You hesitated. You questioned orders. That matters. Report to corporate security for reassignment. They'll decide your next post." The younger guard nodded once, relief flickering across his face. Next, Daniel addressed the junior clerk. "You spoke up when it mattered. That's the kind of judgment this place needs. Expect a call from HR about a promotion." The clerk's mouth fell open slightly, then closed as he straightened his posture. "Thank you, sir." Daniel's gaze shifted to the bellhop. "You too. Courage isn't loud, it's consistent. You'll be hearing from me directly." The bellhop swallowed hard and nodded, his grip tightening on the luggage cart like it was the only thing keeping him anchored in the moment. Naomi stepped closer to the counter, laying her hand flat against the cool marble. Her voice was calm, but the edge was there. "Corporate will audit every complaint filed under that manager's tenure. Every guest denied service, every staff member silenced. We'll find them." A murmur ran through the staff, the kind that carried both fear and hope. Daniel pulled his phone again, dialing without looking at the keypad. "Legal," he said when the line picked up. "Start immediate termination proceedings for Gregory Vance's management team. Freeze severance packages pending misconduct review, and send a statement to the press before close of business." Several guests exchanged glances. They knew they were watching a corporate earthquake happen in real time. Naomi glanced at the floral dress woman, who still had her phone raised. "Make sure you keep that video," she said. "The truth needs more than one witness." Daniel ended his call and addressed the room one final time. "What you saw here today won't be buried. This is your hotel, your experience matters. If anyone here has been treated the way my wife was, you'll have direct access to report it to me." The red scarf woman crossed her arms, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Finally," she murmured, almost to herself. Daniel nodded toward Naomi, and together they began walking toward the private elevator at the far end of the lobby. The crowd didn't part out of fear, they stepped aside out of respect. Each step Naomi took was measured, unhurried. The echo of her heels was no longer the sound of someone under scrutiny, it was the sound of someone who owned the ground she walked on. The private elevator doors slid open with a quiet chime. Naomi and Daniel stepped inside, the glass walls revealing the lobby from above as they ascended. Below, the staff dispersed in uneasy silence, and the guests returned to their seats, though many still clutched their phones, their screens alive with the moment that had just unfolded. Halfway up, Naomi turned to face the glass, watching the scene shrink beneath her. "It's always the same," she said softly. "They think silence means surrender." Daniel met her gaze in the reflection. They confused dignity with weakness. Naomi allowed herself the faintest smile, and they never see it coming. The elevator reached the penthouse level. As the doors parted, a rush of warm light and the scent of fresh lilies spilled into the space. Naomi stepped forward, her heels clicking against the polished wood floors of a suite that overlooked the city skyline. She set her bag down not with the heaviness of someone returning from battle, but with the ease of someone reclaiming what was always hers. Daniel loosened his tie, though he hadn't worn it for the confrontation. "We'll send the statement out within the hour," he said. "By tomorrow, no one in this company will forget what happened today." Naomi crossed to the floor-to-ceiling windows, resting her hands lightly on the cool glass. The city stretched endlessly before her, lights blinking against the deepening evening sky. "It's not about them remembering us," she said. "It's about them remembering the line they can't cross again." Daniel joined her at the window. For a moment, they stood in silence, the hum of the city below like a steady heartbeat. Her phone buzzed on the side table. A notification lit the screen. Viral. CEO shuts down manager's public harassment. The thumbnail was a freeze frame of Naomi, standing tall in the lobby, water still clinging to her blouse, eyes unflinching. She glanced at it once, then let the screen go dark. "People will see," Daniel said. "They'll see," Naomi replied. "And maybe the next woman won't have to prove she belongs." She turned from the window, her steps deliberate, her posture unbroken. The suite was quiet, but the echo of the lobby, the voices, the gasps, the unblinking lenses still lived in the air. On the table by the door sat the slim envelope the manager had tried to brandish as evidence. Naomi picked it up, slid it back into her bag, and closed the clasp with a single, decisive snap. Justice didn't always arrive with sirens or shouts. Sometimes it came dressed in composure, carried by those who refused to be moved. And as the last light of day bled into the horizon, Naomi Carter knew this wasn't just her victory. It was a reminder to everyone watching that dignity, once claimed, was untouchable.